So and the presentation can also be shared. But just in case there's some of your colleagues that are not here now, and there's something you really want to tell them later, there's an opportunity. But do take notes as well. Not enough talking from me. I already spent 5 minutes. I like to start on time. I think we gave enough time for more participants to join us over these last few minutes, being stuck in the traffic, online traffic to get on. Paul, thank you. Paul, Leah and Paul, thank you so much for doing this with us. Paul, it's over to you now. I'm super keen to hear your insights and perspectives.
Right. Thank you, Jesper. Well, thanks to all of the participants today for taking time and giving us this opportunity to listen to what we have to share today. So, as introduced by Jesper earlier, I'm Paul Alay. I'm the head of the HR Consulting and Payroll Services Department of InCorp Philippines, and I've been handling HR consulting requirements for more than 10 years now. And this is actually one of the things that I would love to say that this is my expertise, but well, in essence, this is what my primary experience really was into from the very beginning of my career. So without further ado, let me share my screen so we can start the presentation. All right. So I hope you can already see my screen. So my topic for today would just be a very short crash course on what job analysis and job evaluation is. So it's a 101 session. I think my screen closed. Just give me a second here. Okay. So I'm very, very sure that for at least once in your professional lives, you ask yourself this. So why does my organization pay us or its employees the way it does? So hopefully this afternoon we'll be able to answer that question by walking through these three things. At least understanding what the organizations are paying for, evaluating the worth of the position or what's the worth of each of the positions, and ultimately the way of pricing the jobs. So for our objective, hopefully by the end of the session, we'll be able to understand why job analysis and job evaluation exercises should be done by all of organizations. And hopefully by the end of this, we'll be able to understand the salient concepts and frameworks needed for this kind of projects to be successful. And lastly, knowing how to systematically price jobs. Because, of course, this has been a long-standing question for almost everyone. How should we pay our employees? How much should we pay this position? And something similar to that. So basically, first is what do we really need to pay for? So some organizations, especially those that have been existing for quite some time now, would say that they would be paying for the things that are valuable to them.
So basically, we would need to know what the organization is willing to pay for. So that concept of knowing what to pay for or what it is willing to pay for is the company's pay philosophy. So basically, this is the guiding principle for an organization in deciding what it will be paying for in for its talent. So not just for compensation, but also for the reward system of an organization, for the benefits of its employees, and all the other things that it is willing to give to its employees. So, so what does my company really pay for? Does it pay for possession? Meaning, is it straightforward that the higher the position is, the higher the pay would be? Or does it pay for performance? Meaning, the better the performer is, the higher the pay would be, regardless of whether it would be two different individuals in the same position when one is a better performer than the other. And lastly, do you pay for the person or the profile? Uh, let's say, just like what I've mentioned earlier, for a sales role, do we pay for a person who has a wider network compared to someone who doesn't have that as much as network as the other one, if they would be on the same role, for example, a sales role. So, so this kind of pay philosophy would be the one driving the this kind of thoughts would be the main drivers for the company's pay philosophy. So for us to better understand things deeper, we would have to know first what since we would want to know what we are willing to pay for. We'd like to know the things that we will be paying for. Thus, the job analysis process. So basically, this is the process of creating a systematic structure for jobs. Basically, we would be analyzing the minute details for the jobs, like what would be the responsibilities related to a specific position, what would be the relationship of position A towards position B, position C, and to the entire organization, and what would be the requirements essential for a position or a person to be able to be eligible for a certain position. So when doing a job analysis, basically we would need to understand the functions and responsibilities required for a certain organization to function. So this example right here is a generic example of the common functions in an organization. Like, for example, the ones on top: corporate governance, business directions, business development, culture, improvement, and management are functions that are related to each other. The reason why it's on top, because these are the functions that drive and and give direction for all the other functions down the line. And then, as you can see, over to the left side, there's a section there that that branches to the revenue generation or the business operations, while on the right side, it's the business operation support. So basically, with this kind of structure or functional structure, we have a better idea of what are the functions that are essential for the organization for it to operate on its own. So the reason why this is important to have is at least you'll have a better idea of which of the functions could be outsourced, which ones should be retained as an internal function, and of course, which ones would actually be the ones related to each other. Like for example, the role of business acquisition, is it related to, or how does it relate to quality control, or maybe client and customer care management? So at least this way, we can visually see how each of the functions are related to each other. And this would be translated eventually to positions or jobs. So as you can see here, the functions are, or the structure for the functions is a little looks a little similar to the organization structure, because for one, the president covers the corporate governance, also the business directions. All those functions are under the role of the president. While for functions related, for example, functions related to sales, it would be somewhere here under the sales executive, the marketing executive for marketing functions, and so on and so forth. So in essence, using the functional chart or functional structure, you can actually come up with positions and systematically group them together and come up with positions. Now, for a more detailed view of the structure of the functional and the organizational structure, we also have the job descriptions. So basically, the job description is, as the name implies, it's a description of the jobs or of the positions. So it gives it provides the details of how a certain position, and in this case, in our example, an administrative assistant, is related to the entirety of the organization, like which department does it belong to, which position it reports to, and even the details of the responsibilities. So, as mentioned earlier, aside from the responsibilities and functions, we're also going to be including the requirements for a certain profile or a certain person to be eligible for this position. Like, what would be the minimum requirements in terms of educational background? Does it need a bachelor's degree, or does it need a certain license for one to be eligible for this? And then, of course, the functional skills, the specific skills needed for one to be able to do the role. So, and of course, the legal part of the legal acknowledgement part of the job description. So basically, these three, the functional structure, the organizational structure, and the job description, gives the idea, gives the management and the employees the idea of what would be the things that are important or of worth to the organization. So the things that are listed here are the ones that the employer or the organization is willing to pay its employees for. So now, after knowing what we would be paying for, so we'd be talking about what or how much we'll be paying for those items or for those things. So for companies that are trying to create a compensation program, or maybe those who are revising their compensation and rewards program, we should all be keeping these things in mind. Number one, the suitability of the of our compensation program to the organization. Of course, internal equity, meaning won't we have any problems if, let's say, we increase the pay for a certain position while not doing anything for another position? So there should be that there should be an equity within. There should also be external competitiveness, because it won't really matter how good the compensation program is if the pay, or at least the um, if its competitiveness externally, or it doesn't actually compete with your competitors externally. So let's say, for example, your competitors are paying above the median of the market. So if you'd be paying for lower than the median of the market, chances are the talent would be going for there's better chances of the talent going for your competitor uh, instead. So aside from that, um, you should think of its financial impact to the company. So let's say, for the same example, an organization that wants to compete externally but doesn't have the financial capability to pay and compete with its external competitors, then we might as well just pay within our means. And then, of course, it should be legally sound. The minimum wage should still be followed. The required amount for, let's say, taxabilities should still be followed, and all of those compliances should still be followed. And of course, there should be marketability both internally and externally. It should be palatable for employees, but not just internal employees, but even for external talent. They should be uh, engaged whenever they hear about your compensation or your rewards program. And there should also be flexibility. Uh, in terms of, let's say, in terms of the times, especially nowadays, wherein the competition for talent is uh, uh, quite high, you should be able to make use of a compensation program that would be flexible enough for you to get talent which is relatively relatively higher compared to the average of your internal market. This way, you'd be able to get uh, better talent from outside. And of course, it should always be administratively plausible, meaning uh, you shouldn't come up with a compensation program or a rewards program that cannot be done by your organization on the administrative level. So, so the job evaluation process is basically the process of determining the value of the jobs internally relative to the other jobs within the organization. And of course, once you do that, you'd also have an idea of how much is the worth of a certain position compared to the entirety of the organization. So there are actually multiple ways of doing job evaluations. One very common way of doing it would be the ranking method, just like uh, comparing each of the positions from each other and then ranking them according to how you feel or how the administrator feels it compares to the other positions. So it's very quick, it's very easy, but uh, it's very subjective, and could have problems in terms of scalability. It could work for small organizations, but for organizations with complex organizational structures, complex functions, it might not be, it might not fly. And also, it's going to be very difficult to link the method to the company's pay philosophy, because it's just, as mentioned earlier, it's going to be very, very subjective. Another method would be the classification method. It's just clumping together possessions that are more or less comparable to each other. Like, for example, administrative assistants, uh, clumping them together with other assistant levels, or let's say all the managers, all the positions with the title manager would be clumped together, and then having a range of compensation for that cluster, and then uh, comparing those clusters with the other clusters, and then ranking them accordingly. So it's also very similar to the ranking method. It's very easy to administer. However, it's still very subjective, and could actually be problematic when some positions could not be clumped together with others, especially for niche roles or niche positions. It could be a problem. And again, it's going to be very difficult to link it with the pay philosophy of the organization. So the last sample of the method that that's very common would be the point rating method. Some organizations are the more traditional way of calling it would be the Hayes method. Uh, so this method is a bit more uh, objective compared to the first two, because you'd be comparing positions not just very subjectively, but you'd actually come up with compensable factors, or weights for the compensable factors, and then rating these according to these compensable factors. The thing is, since we would have compensable factors, we can easily link this with the pay philosophy of the organization. But the thing is, this is going to be very time consuming. We, and let's say if we'd be doing this for an organization, it would take several months to do this due to having meetings with the possession holders, having discussions with the department heads for us to better understand the functions and how these functions would relate to compensable factors. So another thing is, another weakness would be this could be very, very stiff when it comes to its rules. But having a very stiff process could also help this. But this is also one of the reasons why someone who has experience in doing this should be the one driving this kind of projects, because if done incorrectly, not only would this be not only will this eventually become subjective, but also it has the chance of actually being more time consuming that it should actually be. So here are some of the compensable factors that are commonly used. So for here, effort, skill, responsibility, impact, and working conditions. So some organizations would put more value to, let's say, skill and effort. So for roles that would have functions that are related to these compensable factors, then the pay for these positions might be higher compared to those that are not so much related to these compensable factors. So this is a sample of the job rating that I've mentioned. So here we have the 5 compensable factors, and we've also put in weights for each of the factors. So knowing these weights, we can say that this specific organization actually puts more value on these 3 compensable factors. First one, the highest weight would be impact, meaning this organization values this the most, and the compensable factor with the lowest weight would be the working conditions, meaning this specific organization puts the least value to this compensable factor. So we'd be scoring each of the positions against each of the compensable factors. So we can come up with a total score for each of the positions. Now, for example, for these roles, an HR manager and an HR assistant, in terms of effort, apparently the HR manager role requires more effort from an individual compared to an HR assistant. The same goes with the skill factor. The HR manager role requires more skill compared to the HR assistant, and so on and so forth, except for the working conditions. Because basically, the working condition of an HR assistant and an HR manager would be more or less the same. So once we add these scores up, we'd be coming up with a total score. For example, here the HR manager gets a total of 390, while the HR assistant gets 205. So the higher the score is, of course, the higher the position would be in the hierarchy of the positions. So in that case, as I've mentioned earlier, the higher the score of the position would be, the higher the hierarchy or its place in the hierarchy of position would be. For example, here, the HR manager with a score of 390 would be here at would be at the 4th highest position, while the HR assistant at 205 would be somewhere here, specifically here. So what we'd be doing is clustering those positions with scores that are quite close to each other, and then coming up with clusters for those. For example, for the first cluster, these 3 positions, since they are relatively close to each other in terms of scores, this would be tagged as cluster 5, or for some organizations, band 5 or job grade 5 or position level 5, while the position 4, or in our example earlier, HR manager, would be clustered together with this one, with position 5, because they are the ones closer to each other, and so on and so forth. So once we come up with that kind of clustering, we can now come up with the salary structure. So those for cluster 1 would be placed here. For cluster 2 would be placed here as a block, and then so on and so forth. Now, we would have an idea of how much can we pay a certain position or a certain individual with a certain position, as long as we know which cluster this position would be part of. So last item on the list would be the actual pricing of the jobs. So these are the 4 common ways of pricing jobs. So of course, the first one would be gut feel. I could remember talking to a business owner back then. She was asking me how much should she pay for a certain role. She was telling me that she has this gut feel that she should be paying position so and so 20,000 pesos because she feels that this is good enough for a certain person, a certain profile for that kind of job. So it's very subjective. It's very well. It doesn't have any basis at all aside from the person's gut feel. So it could be good sometimes, but it could be problematic eventually. And then another way of doing it would be internally checking the compensation data. So how much are we paying positions A, B, and C? How much should we pay for position C if positions A and B are receiving this much? So it's just like that. And then external market data. This is actually our preferred way of coming up with the positions prices. So as having an idea of how much the market is paying for a certain position would give you better grasp of how much the talent market is willing to take such a position for a certain pay range. And of course, you'd be more competitive that way because at least you have an idea of how much your competitors are paying their talents. And lastly, internal requirements and capacity. Uh, as mentioned earlier, one of the things that we should be keeping in mind is how much is the company able to pay its employees. So as mentioned, the market data is using of external market data is very much recommended when coming up with pricing of your jobs because at least you'll have an idea of what's the common trend of the market, how much should you be paying for, so at least you'd be able to get the best talent that you can afford, and at least you'd have basis for what you are spending on. So this way, you'd have a basis for all the other expenses related to labor, like for benefits, provision of benefits, provision of the perks for your employees, as well as other related expenses. So, just a short recap. Pay philosophies basically answer what do we really pay for. And this is something that all organizations should have or should have already established. And another is a job analysis exercise will help you rationalize the functions needed for your organization to operate, which ones are essential, which ones could be jobbed out or given to an external party. Third, positions can be objectively compared and rated using the point rating method. As mentioned, this is our preferred way of doing the job evaluation project or a job evaluation exercise because this is one of the most objective ways of doing it, and this also makes use of the company's pay philosophy. Fourth, the salary benchmark data would be a really helpful tool for the last item, as mentioned, we should be paying for value contribution. So this is related to the pay philosophy. So what's required for the what the organization is willing to pay for? That's something that the employer should be setting their compensation program, basing their compensation program on. So that's it for job evaluation, job analysis, and job evaluation 101. So if ever you have questions, this would be my contact details. But for later, you can ask away. So thank you, and giving it back to Jasper.
Thank you so much, Paul. This was very interesting. I see a few questions in the chat, but my understanding is we will wait until the end after we also had Leah on to take the questions. So unless Paul and Leah, you have a different preference now, but I think
no,
we
can,
stick with the
yeah.
original plan, right?
We'll just answer the questions later. I'm not gonna take too much of your time, guys. So at least you'll have a lot of time for the Q&A portion.
Exactly. That sounds good. All right. So over to you, Leah, and let's hear it from you.
All right, good. Hi, guys. Good afternoon. I hope you're taking your merienda right now. So again, I'm not gonna be taking too much of your time. I'm Leia. I'm actually part of InCorp Talent Solutions. And basically, I'll be just continuing a little bit of what Paul has mentioned earlier and just tackling some topics in terms of recruitment, which is what I specialize in. So for today, basically, I'll be covering these topics, the top 10 industries that we have in demand in the market right now, the top 10 roles or functions that are also in demand in terms of recruitment, how we can properly do job assessments for our candidates when we do recruitment, the main challenges that we're facing in recruitment, and how salary benchmarking can actually help us with that. Okay. So this is just going to be a quick run or overview of the top 10 industries. Basically, I got the information from the different job portals that we commonly use, like JobStreet, Monster, LinkedIn, and also from the demands that we're actually getting from our clients presently. So the number one industry basically is for the BPO and the shared services. I think the pandemic really didn't hit them too hard. A lot of them are still hiring, especially people who can do remote work or work from home services. IT services that focuses mainly on software and hardware development for manufacturing companies, especially for those in the essential goods, basically. For retail, merchandising, and FMCG, healthcare and medical, engineering and construction are slowly picking up as of late. A lot of the projects were on hold during pandemic, but at least now, things are going well. Power and energy, especially in the renewable energy sector. For banking and finance, which also includes online payment gateways, so your GCash or Paymayas, and even your common banks that are also shifting their services online. Surprisingly for education, because a lot of them are doing online work as well, and also for healthcare. And basically, these are the top 10 roles or functions that are currently in demand. Honestly, for us in Corp Talent Solutions, we're getting a lot of these positions from our clients as well. So the first one would be for developers. These are like your software developers, for both for web and for mobile. For customer service for the BPOs, digital marketing, since a lot of companies are shifting everything online. So, things are being available online for e-commerce or for paid media marketing. Cybersecurity, obviously, for companies who have also shifted their businesses online. So at least they have to be able to keep their customers' information secure. Business development mainly to really gear their market towards the post-pandemic or like the new normal, if there's still such a thing. Healthcare related jobs, not just the nurses and the pharmacists, but even those who can do like customer service online. creatives for graphic designers, advertising, public relations, media. Again, for the construction, a lot of engineers, finance and accounting, probably because of the present BIR rulings, there has been a lot of changes, and also when it comes to data analytics and science. So most of the positions, as you would see, are actually related to IT in a sense, because again, a lot of companies are shifting their businesses online. So I think a lot of them are, exploring what else they can do that they've done offline before, but they can now put online. So in terms of job assessments, these are like the most common things that we are seeing or that we are doing presently, but I'll discuss each one briefly. So the first one is identifying the hiring need and creating a clear job description. What does it mean exactly? So before you actually can start sourcing for your candidates, and I think Paul mentioned a bit of this as well, in his presentation, we actually would need to be able to identify first what do we need for the company. So, via doing job evaluation and analysis, an employer can strategically pinpoint the skills and the level and the experience that they would need to be able to create this specific job description. So you can't really just pull words out of air, just to satisfy what a job description is. You really need to think about what exactly you need, because if you would just be hiring or if you just be creating job descriptions based on what you think this person should be doing versus what exactly this person or what this position should be doing, you and your hiring manager will really not see eye to eye. And you have to involve your hiring managers and your recruiters in the conversations. So just to be fully transparent with the key points of the position. The next one is you actually have to streamline your recruitment process. I think one of the hardest part or like the most challenging aspects of HR is really not, in managing the people, but it's more of the recruitment, because before you can manage people, you need to hire the right people first. So you have to create a very streamlined recruitment plan. You need to put in your timeline, your resources, your budget, the people that will be involved in the recruitment process. And also you need to be able to, again, identify the hiring need and create a clear job description. You need to be clear on the onset of the recruitment process as to how long exactly will you be recruiting for this role, what resources you will need, like do you need job advertisements, will you be investing in recruitment firms, do you create referral programs internally, what CRMs or tracking systems you can use, just so at least it would be easier for everybody involved to really fast track everything. And also you need to understand or identify who exactly will be interviewing the candidates. You need to select people who already know what the position is about, just so it would be easier for them to really manage like what would be the key points that they would need to identify about a position. Excuse me. Also, you would, if you would be providing any type of assessments, exams, technical exams, or personality exams, you need to incorporate that in the streamlining of your process. And lastly, you also have to understand what would be your salary budget for the particular position. So again, as Paul mentioned, salary benchmarking is a great tool to help the employers have a better understanding of what the current market offers for similar roles or probably for different roles, so that in terms of industry, you can better your position or better position yourselves in the current market. In terms of interviews, once you're actually able to gather the potential candidates, you've been able to book the interview schedules, you have to understand what type of interview process do I need to put. Is it going to be a behavioral interview? Is it going to be, a skills-based interview? So you have to delegate that properly to the hiring managers. Your hiring timeline is very important in a way that you can shorten the process as much as possible. The pandemic really has opened the possibility of doing video and remote interviews, although it does cut off the ability to measure nonverbal skills, but you can actually just focus on questions that are important to the key core skills that you need for the position. So you can get examples, you can check on the consistencies in their answers if you involve other people in the recruitment process. And some companies again would provide exams that could like be supporting information or supporting documentation for the hiring. And at least this can provide more information regarding the candidate's behavior, their decision-making skills, their soft skills. So it's very important that during the interviews, everything has to be noted or documented. You don't want to miss out on certain things because you would definitely need that when you go to the next step, which is the collective assessment. So collective assessment means that you have to speak with all the interviewers that were involved to get their feedback. If you can actually gather everyone in a call or probably set up a meeting so that you can have like a proper collective assessment, this is much more ideal. At least you can throw out ideas and feedback and what did you feel about candidate A versus what did you feel about candidate B. It's going to be like a collective effort as well for everybody involved so that you'll be able to actually hire the right candidate for your company. If this is not possible, just try getting a detailed feedback from the recruiters, from the hiring managers, from the people that have assessed the exams, just so at least it would be easier to understand why this candidate passed or why this candidate failed, and how you will be able to plan on moving forward with other candidates. So for the next one, doing the reference check and the background checks, I think on the onset of the application process, you have to make your candidates understand that they have to subject themselves to the necessary reference or background checks. Because of the data privacy, some employers would need to ensure that the candidates would agree to the reference checks because you'll be calling certain people on their behalf to like check their work ethics and whatnot. So this would involve or include collation of personal information. So you have to be able to have them like sign a non-disclosure form or like a data privacy form to be able to gather all of these information. And I think the main part or the why this is important is because since you don't have any experience or you don't have any idea how to work with this person, at least somebody who has worked with them before can give you a better understanding on how you can work with this person moving forward. In terms of job offers, once your company has been able to identify the right person to hire, so a job offer shall be issued, which includes the candidate's position, their salary, the work schedule, the work arrangement. Is this going to be, remote work? How is this person going to be measured? Their start date, their benefits, everything basically that the candidate needs to know before they can join the company. So it's advisable to do a salary negotiation session with your candidate prior to the issuance of the actual job offer. Instead of having to go back and forth with the actual employment contract. So why is this important? Why is the salary negotiation important? This is so at least you can set expectations already with your employees, because some employees or some candidates don't necessarily understand what benefits they're getting or when exactly they will be getting it. So, setting the right, let's say, expectations on the onset will be very beneficial in the long run. And again, you can actually come back to your salary benchmarking data if you've done one, as well as with your job analysis and job evaluation, just so at least you'll be able to offer the right and the best offer that is possible and within your budget. And lastly, in terms of hiring, once the candidate formally accepts your offer, collecting the necessary documents and subjecting them to the needed medical examinations would commence after that. So employers have to be very, very particular with the authenticity of the documents that are being submitted to them to avoid any complications during the onboarding process. So this would include your usual COEs or your police records, police clearances, your school records and whatnot. So again, at the bottom of everything, clear communication is very, very much important. You have to have clear communication with your hired employees. And during the orientation and the onboarding process, employees would need to also understand his or her KPIs and KRAs, just so at least it would be easier for you to gauge the performance of the employees moving forward. So I hope that's clear with everybody. So now I'll be discussing the 10 main challenges that I think a lot of recruiters who are in this call have already experienced in the past, and what exactly can we do, to be able to minimize, I guess, the stress of recruitment. So the first one is for the employer brand. Candidates nowadays have been very, very particular with what company they will apply for. With the availability of, social media, having been able to like just do Google for companies, an employer brand is very, very crucial. So, brand reputation and visibility are now critical aspects as compared to before when attracting new talent. Employers need to be able to implement an effective branding strategy that will showcase their culture, corporate social responsibility, different opportunities for growth and development, and even employee satisfaction. So if you're actually able to post, let's say, videos of employees, sharing their experience or probably showing the different company events that are available, that can help out in terms of employer brand. And also, of course, word of mouth, people would be telling their friends, how much they value or how much they enjoy the different corporate events that they have. So that can also add in terms of the employer branding. For the second one, so active versus passive candidates and the talent shortage that we have right now. So most candidates are not really actively submitting their applications to different job postings and job sites. I think you would notice as well that you might be able to post a position, get a lot of candidates, but a lot of them are not really qualified for the position. So basically, companies would need to invest on different recruitment strategies. You can invest on your recruitment firms, you can do social media recruitment, and basically target passive candidates. Those are the candidates who are inactive, but are actually open to hear different opportunities that are available in the market. So they might be able to follow you in your social media page. They're not really actively exploring, but at least if they see, that the different opportunities and the availability of growth in your company, then that can push them to submit and become an active candidate. So some of the potential candidates you can find through, outside sources, not particularly from your internal database, that you're not used to or probably you're not familiar with. Try exploring those. I mean, sometimes you need to invest to be able to get your return in the long run. So social media, again, has been a very powerful tool, since most candidates may, not necessarily be available right now, but they might be available, let's say, in the next couple of months. So, have to invest on getting resources that are actually outside of your comfort zone. In terms of hiring timelines, so this is how fast are you able to actually complete the hiring process. So usually if it takes a month or two, or probably 3 months to 6 months just to close off a job offer, that would be the main reason why you're not able to get that right candidate, or why you're not able to hire the person that you want to hire. Employers need to understand that the job market is very ruthless right now, especially for candidates who are, jumping from one company to another. And you will lose interest if there's no progress or if there's no updates on the candidates' applications. You need to put yourselves in the position of the candidates. Like, how would you feel if your employer or the company that you're applying for has suddenly ghosted you? So they will definitely look for opportunities elsewhere. So you have to be, again, clear and transparent in terms of communication by providing them updates, even let's say in every 2 days, every 3 days, just so at least they know if they're still in the running or not. Proper closure is also important. If they failed, don't be shy to inform them. It would be better to have any update than no update at all. And of course, we want to avoid hiring the wrong person as much as possible. So you would, if you want to hire quickly, but you want to avoid hiring the wrong people, then at least it's important that you highlight that targeting or recalibrating during the interviews. I think we go back again to the evaluation and the analysis, that you have to inform the candidate still that, okay, I'm sorry, but I think we need somebody else for the position. We've recalibrated the position and we're looking for somebody else. So you have to be very, very transparent to your candidates as well. How long will it take for you to complete the hiring process? What exactly do they need to submit, or probably what exactly would they need to have to be able to qualify for the position that you're looking for? So candidate experience, again, how you treat and how you process your previous candidates may actually reach the ears of potential candidates. Again, experience, if let's say one company was not able to provide you with any feedback, didn't really, give you any updates on the application, that's already a negative experience for one potential candidate that can actually reach the ears, or probably will be heard of by people online or by people that you were supposed to be targeting. So candidates will decline your offer if they're not satisfied with their overall experience with the recruitment process, and which is that's like your gateway into the company. Interviews that are like, interviewers are actually like the employers holding the door open for their candidates. And if they're actually not happy with their first impression, they'll definitely turn around and walk out from you. So, people talk. You have to be able to make sure that employer brand, going back to the first line, employer brand and your hiring timelines are all intact, just so at least you won't have to lose potential candidates. And of course, bad if there's bad experiences, there are also going to be good experiences. If you have like good communication experience, or a good recruitment process in place, and they're actually able to communicate well with their candidates, then they can definitely refer more potential candidates. So everything basically ties up. And in terms of recruiters not understanding what the role is about, I think this is like one of the main challenges basically that I have been facing myself, especially when we are communicating with some of our clients. So you have to you have to be able to, make sure that your recruiters or your hiring people actually understand what the position is about, just so at least it would be easier for them to communicate to potential candidates, as well as to the recruitment firms or probably their partners with, what exactly would they be looking for. So proper calibration and alignment with the hiring managers are very important. Again, with the help of job evaluation and analysis, an employer will be able to fully understand what exactly they need to avoid processing hundreds and hundreds of applications and not being able to close off the actual requirement. So again, everything falls back to proper communication. So building your talent pool, basically what does this mean? It's updating the database of candidates that you previously processed, candidates who have submitted their applications to you before, probably former employees, and those that were presented to you by your recruitment firms. So why do you need to keep or to build your talent pool? So keeping your talent pool updated will definitely go a long way. Probably a previous, shortlisted candidate, a candidate that you processed before, and but you don't necessarily have a good position for them right now, or probably those who have initially declined the job offer or the position, but may be available in the near future. Not just with your talent pool, but also keeping good relationship with your service providers, your recruitment firms, your previous employers and whatnot. This can also be cost effective for companies because you already have their details on hand. You don't have to, search for them through Facebook or through LinkedIn, or you don't have to spend too much just to be able to reach them. So inviting them to join probably like a talent network or keeping in touch with them continuously will actually help you in the in future hiring needs. You may not need them now, but you will definitely need them later. So, again, former employees are also a good source because they already have like a good experience working with you. So you make sure that employee experience is also good for them, that at least you can use them as a source or as a database for future needs. So, right now there's a huge talent shortage in the market. And I think, making sure that we're actually able to keep up with the challenges that are being thrown at us, especially, having good relationships with previous employers, previous employees, and previous candidates. These will help us in the long run. So next would be investing in automation. So what exactly is automation, and how exactly can this help us? So these would be like your tracking systems, your automated screening tools, interview bots, chat bots, and outsourcing your recruitment needs to recruitment firms. So automation, again, it's here. And me personally, I love it. I love using automated things because it makes the job easier. So aside from making the tasks of tracking your applications and keeping everybody in the process involved and updated, it's also data driven. I think that's the most important thing. It gives you an oversight of what exactly is available now, what exactly will you be needing in the future, what would be the challenges, where's my bottleneck. Those are the data that you would definitely need to be able to streamline your recruitment process. And it also gives employers, key information in terms of manpower planning, manpower projection, as well as in terms of process improvement. So this can actually help employers, also be able to provide better information for their employees, for their recruitment firms, for their talent base or talent database, in terms of like where exactly am I now. There's actually a lot of applicant tracking systems available. For us in InCorp Talent Solutions, we've actually developed one on our own. It gives us like a bigger view, like a better view of what the talent market is about right now. And next you have to be flexible. Remote work or hybrid work set up are probably like the key drivers for some or for a lot of employees, or sorry, a lot of candidates to consider your firm. So you have to listen to your potential talents and your current talents. So the pandemic has really opened the possibility that doing work remotely can be helpful, in a sense. Although this may not be applicable probably to all industries, but it's still important that you listen to your employees, both the existing and when you're hiring. And this can also actually be a good enticing factor for your recruitment needs probably in the future. Honestly, for me, I've actually interviewed a lot of candidates in the past. Work setup hasn't been an issue, but now because of the pandemic, they've actually seen that it is possible to work remotely. But again, it will depend on what your business needs is, but you have to listen to them. You have to listen to like how exactly can we move forward, matching the challenges and the opportunities within the organization. It also provides employees, the ease from commuting. We all know how horrible traffic here in the Philippines is. So of course, employers would actually need to set proper KPIs and KRAs, just so at least we can still ensure the performance of the remote workers. And aside from recruitment, you'll also need to focus on employee retention, which I think is also very important because of the a lot of resignations happening. I know probably you're currently experiencing some of them, but yeah, you have to focus on employee retention. So you need to avoid losing your prize talents to competitors who are actually able to offer more, or either the work setup or with compensation. So I think the salary benchmarking and job analysis and job evaluation would be definitely helpful in terms of how you can be flexible for your employees and for your potential talents. And in terms of salary benchmarking, as I mentioned earlier, how can you keep up with the market offering? So investing in salary benchmarking services, or probably collecting data from salary benchmarking, will also be helpful for employers to keep themselves informed and updated on what are your competitors offering, how exactly can we put ourselves in front of our competitors. So most employees will probably look for better compensation, or probably look for a better work setup or a better culture. But if they find companies who are able to compensate them more for the level of work that they're doing, then you have to keep up. So ensuring that you're actually competitive in the market will help not just retain your talent, but actually be able to attract new ones. And lastly, for job analysis and evaluation, so you need to understand your internal pool, the critical skill sets that you need for your new hire. So understanding your employees' strengths and weaknesses can actually help determine the roles that you would need to hire for. You need to compensate for the for the weaknesses of some of your employees by finding probably talent outside that have those strengths, in a sense, if that makes sense. And oftentimes we lose employees to competition because we're actually unable to satisfy their professional needs. So this is not just about compensation. It's also going to be about their professional needs and their professional growth. So identifying their strengths and capitalizing on this, whether transferring them to a different role, probably offering them higher positions and pay grades, we can be able to retain these talents in the company, as well as identifying their weaknesses and working on how we can improve these. Employers are actually able to grant growth and support to their employees, making employees feel valued and cared for. Hence, you can retain them as well. So part of this process is also to identify the holes and areas which the company can focus on for when they do decide to hire. So again, as mentioned in point number 5 earlier, it does help if your recruiters are fully aware and they fully understand what the role is about. And this basically ties up for the whole organization. So again, at the end of it all, you need to be able to really communicate everything well internally and externally. And just to briefly run through what salary benchmarking is and how it can actually help you in terms of your recruitment needs. So first, you need to determine the most competitive salary, because basically salary benchmarking can help you determine the most competitive salary packages that employers can offer based on the current market trends. It can also provide benefits offered by companies that helps attract candidates. So probably you have, let's say, benefits that you're not presently providing, but your competitors are providing that you can probably incorporate if you have the budget for it, or move around some of the benefits, so at least you can still provide your employees with the best benefit package. These are also reports based on industries, job levels, job functions, locations, and skills. So it's pretty much targeted with what exactly you need. It also includes job descriptions and skills that can help employers with their job analysis and job evaluations. It also provides evaluation of different job positions, core skills, and competencies. And it can also help companies be competitive. Again, you need to put yourselves in front of everybody. It helps attract talent in the market, maximizing your talent management costs and maximizing plan designs for financial gains. And lastly, it also helps realign your recruitment strategies. So I think the main reason why salary benchmarking is important is because the pandemic has shifted a lot of things in terms of compensation, job description, job requirements, and all of that. And you need to be able to understand what your competitors are doing so that eventually you can use that for your company. You probably look into different trends, be able to anticipate what the market will dictate in the next couple of months, and so on and so forth. So that's all for me for today. Again, I'm Leia. I'm part of InCorp Talent Solutions. Here are our contact details if you need anything, and we'd be happy to answer your questions now.
Yay, this was interesting. We still have around 15 minutes left for Q&A. So I think even if we got so much information from our two speakers today, I think there's still a lot of questions. I received a number of questions, and I see a number of people have submitted. I don't think we will be able to manage all within the time frame, but let's try. So just some relatively brief responses maybe. I'll just take the latest that just dropped in just to get us started before I scroll up to the start. Which job portal is the most popular one in the Philippines?
Okay, so I think I'll be the one to answer that. Honestly, for the job portal, JobStreet has always been the leading one, but a lot of people don't realize that LinkedIn is actually pooling a lot of the passive candidates. It's just a matter of how exactly you capitalize or use LinkedIn. A lot of companies also don't know that social media is a huge pool for potential talent as well. So you just need to identify the different groups that you need to join in, how to target, people that are actually, let's say, working for certain companies. So it's really going to be more on the social media thing that majority of the companies are not aware that they can actually capitalize in.
So just to elaborate on it, or a follow-up question. So personally, I think that LinkedIn has a lot of inactive users here in the Philippines. Many are not really attending to their LinkedIn profile and updating it, but you still recommend it as one of the portals to use.
Yes. I honestly feel that in terms of LinkedIn, it's really how you use it, how you how do you find these talent outside of LinkedIn as well. You can use LinkedIn as probably like a jumping point, And then it's really going to be more of like a headhunting type of skill where you have to pinpoint where exactly these people are. But yeah.
Okay, and just also to elaborate on the groups, I mean, I assume you talk about Facebook and joining.
Yes, a lot of
for people looking for
Facebook.
jobs, or-
Yeah, a lot of Facebook groups are actually available. Let's say for engineering or for IT people, most of them are not really active participants in those groups, but they are actually interested if you know if you're actually able to provide them with the right information. Let's say when you post something in that group. With our team, we've actually seen growth in terms of potential candidates that we can use from different Facebook groups.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
And this is just from my perspective, not from the Philippines, but from Singapore and Thailand. And my experience, those kind of groups seems to be not necessarily for the best talents. I mean, it is mainly people who are looking for a job, not in a current role. So it depends on what persons you are looking for, I guess, what positions.
And I think it's important for for leaders to be able to train their employees or their recruiters well on how to really look into applying, let's say, headhunting skills, because this is mainly how we get passive candidates.
This was good. Thank you for elaborating on this. I want to do a follow-up question, but to Paul somehow. You're talking about the job pricing and how to ensure that it's competitive, etc. What you didn't mention so much, which I think is hard to also say, if your company is offering significant benefits, which are hard to quantify financially, it could be flexible work, it could be a lot of training, upgrading of employees, free internet, free phone, free laptop, etc. How to rate your own job pricing and make sure that people understand what they really get, not just in terms of pesos.
Yeah. This is also one of the reasons why setting up the pay philosophy really comes first. So the pay philosophy will not only determine how much you'd be paying your employees, but also this will determine their palette for what you are providing them. You'd be able to attract the talent that gives value to what you are paying for, essentially. So, for example, you are paying for skills, let's say very niche skills. So you'd be attracting people with this kind of skills. So you should have a compensation program or a rewards program that actually just focuses on paying for those skills, not necessarily things that they won't be interested in. So let's say, for example, one example, concrete example that I can think of is when I used to work for a food manufacturing firm. We were trying to attract people who are skilled in manufacturing, not just manufacturing food, but actually craftsmen when it comes to cooking, baking. So since we are trying to attract that kind of people, we won't be providing benefits related to, let's say, vacations, providing them with cars, providing them with, let's say, providing them with other benefits that are not related to becoming better bakers, for example. So what we do is we provide them with benefits such as getting free dinners in relatively good restaurants, so at least they could enjoy food and also be exposed to what they are interested in. So we're actually getting not just we're not just getting the thumbs up from them, but we're also getting something in return, such as them getting more ideas which they can bring back to the workplace.
Okay, I understand. I was just also, this was a question for myself, to be honest, because I know that a lot of our members, they are now, you know, especially those in PESA zones and with the requirements from DOF, basically, right, that they must work from the office. They are losing talent to companies that are not in PESA zones, right? Talents, they want clarity, they want benefits, they want to be able to work from home, for instance. So, but to quantify it and say, yes, I'm still competitive, you know, I cannot, let's say you cannot offer it, or it's an advantage you can offer it. How to quantify it, you know, how to say, okay, my competitors offer 40,000, but they offer work from home. How much do I need to offer because I cannot offer work from home, for instance, because of a government requirement? Is there any rule of thumb? So how would you find out, you know, are you still competitive total?
Yeah, it would actually boil down to the marketing skills of the compensation and benefits team, because basically you're trying to sell the idea of the compensation to the employees, that for the work that they'd be giving you, this is what they'll be getting in return. So let's say in terms of comparing let's say what you have mentioned, a work from home setup against an employment which would be doing an RTO. This would again boil down to which is valuable to the employee. Would they put value on the pesos that they, or the specific peso amount they would be getting if they would be given an RTO role or a return to office role against a role which would be paying relatively lower in terms of pesos, but they would have more time at home. So which would be of value to them, and which would be of value also to the employer. Basically, as mentioned, you should have established your pay philosophy first, because having an established pay philosophy would actually attract talent that would have more or less similar philosophy to the values that you have set.
Thank you, Paul. Leah, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, actually, you know, a lot of companies, especially with like the PES, I think you're talking about like PESA companies, right? Like they're supposed to go back to the office. So probably if we can compensate or ease the inconvenience in a way for some of these employees, like probably providing them with free lunches, or you know, giving them a shuttle service or something, it would be easier for them to actually report to the office, like show them that it's still happier, it's still, you know, worth it to go to the office. You know, you have to invest on your company culture, make them feel safe, and it's a fun working environment and all of that. So you really have to focus on and listen to what your employees would need, I think, in terms of how they would feel comfortable going back to the office setup.
I hear what you say, but I also think at least a lot of the Nordic companies, they offer all of those things that you talk about now already, right? So that's not making a difference. I mean, that's just treating your employees very well to ensure that the talents will be retained. Anyway, I understand, and it's very difficult to quantify, right? I know some of the companies that I talk to, they say, well, our employees, they used to rent a second apartment, right? So they spend like 20,000-30,000 on that, and they're not spending it because of work from home. And we cannot afford to give them 20,000-30,000 more in salary, right? And they're kind of expecting that now. So those are some of the things that are really hard to compete against, right? Change in reality. But I think your advice to all is basically try to adapt, right? Ask your employees, be in communication with them, get information from wherever you can on what is really, what is the standard now, what do I have to do to make sure that I'm in the right position with my offer. Okay. There's a question, and again, I'm sorry to all of our participants. There's so many questions. Trying to list down of them. I don't know if we collate these questions afterwards. Would it be something that we could ask for an answer to afterwards?
Sure,
We did not expect this, right? So we didn't discuss it in advance. All right. I see here one from Niesel saying we encounter a lot of issues with the candidate who is already started in the training and does not show up halfway. As a professional organization, what will be your advice to avoid such issue? And just to add to it, I think I heard about also, if you had a lengthy, detailed discussion with people during the interviews, sometimes they don't show up on the first day even. It's not just halfway through training, but already on first day. How to counter this?
Yeah, I think it's it's sometimes it's out of your control, really, if that's okay to say. There's a couple of problematic candidates every now and then, but I think what we basically need to do is really just have a good communication, open communication line. Sometimes new employees will not be comfortable yet, to tell you what exactly they're feeling, or if they're really not interested in the position. But you can use that as a learning tool, basically, on how you would move on to your next candidate, just so at least you can avoid certain issues to happen again. So if you feel that, in the onset, you weren't able to clearly communicate everything, set expectations with the candidates, you'll probably lose them halfway through the training. So at least now you know that the next batch of candidates will be interviewing. You have to be very clear with them with what is exactly being expected from them, what they can expect from you as well, just so at least it would be easier to retain them, even, let's say, during the training period.
Thank you. Paul, would you have something to add to that?
Yeah. Well, similar to what Leah mentioned. So basically, well, from my end, I would recommend really aligning of the values as early as possible, even on the still on the recruitment process. So at least chances of the new hire changing his or her decision in the middle of the training would be lessened. As long as the new hire and the organization would have aligned values, even if there would be some challenges during the training period, chances are the new hire would muscle through the training period, because alignment of values would be a really strong bond for new hires.
Thank you. It's already 4:31. I just realized. Are you guys okay with 5 minutes more, Leah and Paul? It's perfectly okay if you have another thing lined up. I see we still have 51 on the call. So I assume not all had to jump straight into another call. So let's try to provide them with something, more information, if that's okay. Like 5 minutes more, 2 questions more. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good. So, and to those of you who have to leave now among our participants, I hope you enjoyed it. We are recording, so actually you can go and revisit this at a later point of time, the extra questions. But thank you for joining so much. We're going to do a few more questions. So, there's a question from May Sarah Sapaad. That's a company. Where can we get information regarding the current market trends in salary? I think that's super relevant. What's your best proposal on that? Who would like to go first?
Paul?
Yeah, sir. Information, yeah. Actually, there are a lot of sources. Well, I would be plugging one service of ours, the salary benchmarking service. We can actually provide salary benchmarking data, and not just salary benchmarking data, but also a few bits regarding the benefits and perks that the employees are getting from their employers. So aside from us, other providers out there, one of which was mentioned in the chat box somewhere, I believe. Glassdoor is one of the more known ones globally. However, related to one of the questions posted here, Glassdoor isn't that familiar here. Here in the Philippines, primarily because not everyone is actually aware that Glassdoor exists. And another thing is most of the talent market are more comfortable providing information during interviews rather than providing these during surveys. So I would suggest getting in touch with a firm that specializes in this kind of service, so they could actually help you let's say specify your specific requirements, whether it be a specific industry that you'd like to check, a specific position that you want to benchmark with, and other specifications that you'd like to set up.
And just to add to that, again, shameful
Leah.
plugging of our service for salary benchmarking, we mainly focus on your preferences. So location, competitors, level of the position, years of experience. So we actually use the information or your preferences to be able to cater or to provide you with a better salary benchmarking report, and we typically have 3 reports per position that we can offer you. So it would give you a min, median, and a maximum range of salaries from your direct competitors, basically.
Thank you for elaborating on this, and this sounds really good. I can highly recommend our participants here today to reach out to InCorp, to Leah or Paul for this service. I would also have to say we have a few others companies doing something similar that are member of NORDCHAM, so you can also reach out to me or Maran if you want a third party. But I can strongly recommend InCorp. All right, I think there's a few more questions here. There's one that actually to somehow build your own database of knowledge. The last question that just came in is salary benchmarking something you have to conduct on an annual basis, or how often would you go about that?
For me, a good length of time would be 2 to 3 years. But if you are more conservative, 5 years would still be good enough. However, if your industry is very competitive in terms of its talent in the talent space, then I would recommend checking every year, because of course, especially nowadays, as mentioned by Leah, the talent market is really highly competitive. So for you to be able to get the best talent that you can afford, you must check for benchmarks as frequent as you can.
Leah, you have any comments?
I agree.
Good. That sounds good. I'm just looking. I mean, you covered some of the questions that were asked already during your presentation. I'm just looking for some more. Feel free if you're on the call still to ask something. There's a question here on improving. It's a little bit out of scope, but I think it's very interesting still to get your perspectives on it. I will not. It says since most IT people are now working remotely. I don't think it's just IT people. I think it's all kind of job functions. So, but since the most are working remotely at team buildings, team lunches, events, etc., that get people together, that's less happening now, or has been at least. What's your recommendation to improve employee engagement? And in the end of the day, that's also employee retention, right?
You want to go, Paul? Or
Yeah, sure. There are actually a lot of employee engagement programs that don't necessarily require face-to-face interactions. There are, let's say, there are games that you could actually, or activities that you can do online via Zoom, via Google Meet, or any other communication platforms out there. You can also come up with circles or communities internally. So people with the same interests could actually gather even online, because basically that's natural for people to do even in the office setup, where people with the same set of interests would actually get together and do similar things. So these could be done even online. But the good thing is, with the relaxing of the restrictions nowadays, some organizations are already starting to plan for such events, team lunches, some team buildings. Well, of course, there should still be some safety and health practices to be done, but at least things are easing up nowadays.
yeah.
Thanks,
And
Paul. Would you have something to add, Leah?
yeah, in addition, even in our company per se, we have our Friday movie nights. People can gather, even though it's online, watch a movie together. We have, the month-end parties wherein you can honor or acknowledge new employees, or probably your best performing employees. We also have like these online platform where we can play games and whatnot, like online yogas and all of that. But again, since the restrictions are easing up, probably you can schedule like a once every quarter meeting or lunch event with your employees, just so at least you can still see them and just feel that they're still alive. I think the human interaction is the very important part of everything, or of maintaining people in the company.
Certainly, and I mean, it's not like in NORDCHAM we don't have a lot of employees, right? But we have a lot of members who are, we try to treat them the same way, and now we are really looking into taking many things face to face, because it's again possible, right? So I think it's very important to still have in mind that some people are still a bit scared to go out. So we have to cater for both. Right? I see a question here from Marco. You tell me when to stop, okay, Leah and Paul, because I think there's still a handful of questions left, and I see more coming in. If it's really not too convenient, it's perfectly fine that we stop now. But if you're still okay, give me a thumb up.
Maybe we can just do two more.
Yeah. Let's do a few more, and then we have to stop, I think. I actually have a poll related to a question from Marco, because Marco is asking, why do you do the reference background checks? I think he meant somewhere in the end of the process and not in the start. While you answer that, I'll launch a poll. Wait, you can answer it first, or I can launch a poll related to it. Should I launch a poll first, and then you can answer afterwards?
You can do the poll first, if that's fine.
Yeah, let me do that. Can you see the poll now? It's reference check. I was just thinking, is your company doing reference check, meaning calling and talking with former employees? Just to see, are people really doing it? Because at least my personal experience and from what I hear, many are not doing so.
Yeah,
But
actually,
I don't know.
a lot of companies would often rely on, the documents that employees would submit, like their certificate of employment, or their, let's say, their school records and whatnot, or probably police clearances. But I think for me, it's actually important to really understand how to work with this person, because you don't know them. This is going to be like the first time you will be working or interacting with them. So it's highly advisable to talk to people that they've actually been able to work with. So I think that's one of the main reasons, especially, when it comes to work ethics, making sure that in terms of work performance, they don't have any issues with people that they worked with before. So I think it's very important to actually understand that aspect of a candidate from people that they've worked with in the past.
Sorry, I ended up sharing it before you were done talking here, but thanks for your perspectives.
No
So we
problem.
had a bit more than half of the remaining participants answer, and 75% say yes, their company is actually doing some kind of reference check. That is, from my experience, really, really high.
Yeah.
That is a big surprise. Thank you so much for sharing this. Would you have any further, comments, especially to Marco's question on, when should you do that checkup? I mean, I think he's thinking that, why not do it as one of the first things to, that's a filter, right? So you don't have to spend time on a person that's not qualified.
Actually, we've experienced before that some companies would prefer to have the reference checks on the onset, but sometimes candidates are really not broadcasting that they're applying to certain positions. So if we're actually going to call their previous boss or their current boss that they're applying with us, that can ruin the relationship for them. So usually we would advise clients to just do it, let's say, once the candidate is shortlisted. Just so at least to conserve, efforts and also resources of your recruiters as well, because it takes time, to get the availability of their references as well, to take your call and to answer your questions. And at least, once they have been shortlisted, you can be sure that you're only investing your resources and your time to the right candidate.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it is always a balance, right? What to do when, because obviously you also don't want to to put your potential new employee in a bad favor, especially if you end up not choosing the person, then that person will not apply next time.
Exactly. Again, going back to experience of your employees, I'm sorry, your candidates, you have to make sure that they have a good experience all throughout, and they'll definitely recommend you to other potential candidates as well.
Yeah. Okay. I think we went through majority of it. There's two super interesting questions left. So following Paul's advice about taking a few questions and then finishing, I think these are the two last questions. No more questions, please. One, how do we establish a pay philosophy? We've been talking about it. Can you give a few concrete examples, or is it more something they should contact you guys about?
Sure. Well, for example, we used to. I used to have a university as a client for the job evaluation project. So, as a university, what's important for them would be, of course, for their industry is the skill of the employees, since they should have good skilled teachers or professors, and also the ability to, in terms of responsibility, the ability to take care of their students, the ability to teach them the right information. So in terms of responsibility, the organization or the university really puts premium on those two compensable factors. So in terms of pay philosophy, they actually put weight on those two compensable factors, but not so much on the working environment, because the school or the university does not pose any threats to safety nor to health, not so much, nor let's say for the other compensable factors. So at least for that specific organization, they were very much they were very much specific on what they would want to pay for, what type of skill or compensable skill are they looking for in a individual, for them to hire that individual, and of course the level of skill in terms of, let's say for the academe, is very much easy to identify because of the level of educational experience, the type of educational background that they've had. It's quite quantifiable. So with that quantification, it's very easy to set up that, hey, this is something that we are paying for. The higher you have, the higher skills that you have for this, the higher set of responsibilities that you have would be paying for this, not so much on the other factors. So, but it would be different, let's say, for an engineering firm, because for an engineering firm, let's say for a construction firm, there would be their working conditions would be different. So of course, the company would be paying a little bit more for in terms of working conditions for that specific organization. So the pay philosophy for that company would be different compared to a university. So in
Thanks,
terms
Paul.
of in terms of establishing, you just need to understand first and establish what are the things that the company is not just willing to pay for, but is really deemed to pay for.
Excellent. Leah, would you have something to add?
I think Paul is like the right person to ask about that.
Yeah.
That topic. He's the expert.
That's Paul. I have to ask this follow-up kind of on this pay philosophy, right? How transparent do you have to be on your pay philosophy? Also internally in your organization, right? I mean, we all know, even if there's a policy of don't talk about your salary, it's confidential, it's somehow somewhat happening anyway. So is it something you would encourage, that the pay philosophy and how the ratings are, etc., how the ratings are? Is it something you would encourage to be very transparent about, or how to deal with it? Is it part of such a philosophy?
Based on experience, the better one good way of doing it is at least the entire organization knows what the company is paying for. At least at that level, everyone understands the general pay philosophy, but not necessarily opening the idea of getting the details of, let's say, the rating per position, or the details of the actual pay structure of the company. Of course, it's a better practice would only having the authorized personnel seeing this kind of information.
Thanks, Paul. Leah, would you have something to add?
And just to add, I think it's important for the HR to have like a certain policy on, not disclosing those type of information, because it can cause confusion and also, problems with like different departments if the pay scale for different departments or different position levels would be different. So I think a proper policy in place would be very, very crucial for every company to have.
Excellent. That is very two very, very valid perspectives from the two of you. It's almost 5 o'clock now, and I think let's finish up this talk with the last question and then your perspective. Just general recommendation. At least we're done by 5 then. I'm sorry for keeping you all so long time, especially Paul and Leah for not having planned this in advance.
My out is at 5, so it's okay. Go ahead.
Good. Last question before your perspectives and in general recommendations. So there is one here from Otfield Drilling. How do you entice talents in Facebook groups and other social media? Is there particular content that you need to post on, how to get them interested? Would you have any quick recommendation on that?
Can I go first, Paul? Yeah, so I think I mentioned it in one of my slides that you have to provide good employer branding or good, employer information for your potential talent. So I think posting, employee experiences, your corporate social responsibilities, just basically providing potential candidates an insight of what the company is about and what the company is all about. You'll be able to really get the attention of potential candidates that that don't really know you in the first place, I think. So it's, with the power of social media, you could probably do paid ads or probably have your employees share different posts so it would reach a bigger audience. But it's really, just basically showing your potential candidates what the company is all about and how you as a corporation or as a company can be beneficial for them as well.
Thank you. Paul, would you have something to add?
I believe Leo would be the better expert when it comes to this, but just to share my experience when I used to handle recruitment myself, most of the time, applicants would be looking at the social media as a verification of the information seen on the websites. So, in general, the content on the social media sites or accounts of the companies would be the less formal content compared to the information seen on the website. So at least I think the information or the content on the social media should be focusing more on the culture or maybe the general employee experience of being part of the organization.
That is an excellent advice, I think. Thank you. All right, let's finish this up with a quick perspective from your side. What's your main recommendation from what you have been talking about? A key message, very short one for our audience today. Who would like to start?
Yeah. If I may, for one, if you are also asking yourself, why does my company pay its employees the way it does, then I believe it would be a good exercise to do a job analysis and job evaluation project for your organization. And also, if you have any questions regarding how much is my competitor paying their employees, or should I be paying, or should I be getting more, or should my employees be getting more? You should ask for salary benchmarking information. So for these kind of information and services, feel free to get in touch with InCorp Philippines, because these are the things that we provide our clients.
Thank you, Paul. And from you, Leah?
So for my part, first of all, again, proper communication. You need to be able to be very transparent with your candidates, whether they pass or they fail. That's the key to, finding the right talent in the Philippines. And if you actually need assistance in terms of recruitment and executive search, that's our specialization. So you can reach out to me or via our website or our trunk lines. We'll definitely love to share your information. You can visit our website to know more about the services that we offer. And in terms of salary benchmarking, it's a partnership that Paul and I have. So we'll definitely be able to help you, strategize and really look into how you can put yourself again in front of your competitors. And it has been a pleasure to speak, or to, even if I just see your pictures, it's been a pleasure sharing you some of our knowledge and market understanding, and hopefully that we'll get in touch soon.
This was most excellent. I'm so happy for this meeting. I learned a lot. I hope that our audience learned a lot today. Another great, I would have to say, great NORDCHAM event. And again, fantastic information that we always get from InCorp. Thank you to Leah and Paul for all your contributions. This is what it's all about. It's to grow each other, to become better. I think Ma'an is asking for a group picture for the three of us before we finish.
Sure.
Are you ready, Ma'an?
Yes. Okay. 1, 2, 3, smile. Hey, got it. Thanks.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Paul. This was, I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you to our audience. If you want to learn more about NORDCHAM, do reach out to myself or Ma'an. The recording from today will be shared on our social media. We probably have to look a little bit different on our strategy and take into mind what you guys are showing. Share our culture, share how we do those things. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for bearing with us for an additional half hour. It is not like that normally here at NORDCHAM, but it was so inspiring, I think.
Thank you.
Take
Thank you
care,
for
everybody.
having us.
Take care, everybody, and see you hopefully soon face to face or at another NORDCHAM virtual event.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.